Hey everybody, welcome to Pealed Back's LiveCast Conversation With episode 24. Today, I get to have a conversation with Bob Burg. Bob is a sought-after speaker at company leadership and sales conferences, sharing the platform with everyone from today's business leaders, broadcast personalities, to even former U.S. presidents. Bob is the author of a number of books on sales, marketing, and influence, with a total sales well over 1 million copies. His book, The Go-Giver Series, which he's co-authored with John David Mann, itself has sold over 975,000 copies, which I have one on my desk right now, and has been translated into 29 languages. Bob and John's newest parable in the Go-Giver series is the Go-Giver Influencer. Bob is an advocate, a supporter, and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. He's also an unapologetic animal fanatic and is a past member of the board of directors for Furry Friends Adoption Clinic and Ranch in his town of Jupiter, Florida. Bob, thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure, Gene. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no worries. You know, obviously my words can't do justice to all the great things that you've done. I always like to kick it off with just kind of giving a little bit of an intro to yourself about your career and where it's gotten you to today.
Well, I began in broadcasting and sort of moved from that into sales, and really made a study of sales and enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the personal development aspect as well as the people I got to meet. And it just kind of grew from there. Began work as a sales manager for another company, and eventually started teaching others how to do what was working for me, and morphed into a speaking career. And I've been doing that now for the past 30 years or so.
Nice. And that now as well, obviously a celebrated author too.
Well, thank you. You know, the first book that I wrote, called Endless Referrals, that was more of a utilitarian type of project, because I was told by a few veteran speakers that I needed to have a book to help market myself. And they were right. I mean, it really helped a lot. I think after the first book, the books I wrote after that were more because I kind of wanted to get a message out, and a book was the best way of being able to do so.
Right. So have you found yourself focusing a lot more just on the authoring component of it now to help spread your message? And we'll get into like the Go-Giver message in a minute. But
yeah, I mean, you know, for 30 years or so, I've been speaking at conferences and conventions and so forth, and it's been a lot of fun doing that. I've never enjoyed the traveling aspect, but every other part of it I really liked.
yeah,
But as part of that, you know, the books and so forth not only helped in that regard, but it also led to other opportunities that we were able to do and so forth. And but as I get older and have wanted to speak less and less, and now with COVID, of course, it sort of really caused me to take stock and say, you know, even after COVID ends, I really don't want to get on a plane and travel anymore. So
right.
now my speaking is and will be, even after COVID, it will be totally you know, through virtual and
Right.
so forth. And so, but the books have helped to, you know, create our certified Go-Giver speaker program, which is a licensing program where we have speakers all over the world who are out there spreading the message, and different courses and so forth. But yeah, it all really comes back to the books as being that positioning center.
Right. And now I was going to jump into the whole, like, how COVID has changed your speaking gigs. Now I know that you've got your podcast, which I, you know, a little starstruck. So I listen to that as well. So
Certainly
between
don't need to be starstruck of me.
so you've got your podcast, and then just doing a lot more like virtual interviews and speaking engagements
Well,
now.
I've been doing interviews for years. That's always now there's more of them on Zoom over the last few years, and now of course with COVID, definitely. But the actual speaking, the keynote speaking, is a whole separate thing.
Right.
It's just that I'm not doing them in person, just doing
Yeah.
them from exactly
From the comfort of your own home
from
in
the comfort
Jupiter.
of my home. Absolutely, no better place to be.
Well, I kind of want to dive into the Go Giver series, right? So I've read the book, listened to the Audible a number of times, and it just really stands out. It's been something that was recommended through a friend of ours. Like he recommended that I
Great guy.
listen to it. I agree with you on that statement 100%. He's an awesome dude. And he said it was going to be a great opportunity just to kind of have a different lens on things. So you want to give a little bit of a background around like where that came, and I think probably from your sales training that you were talking about, it's kind of where this led to in your endless referrals.
Yeah. Well, and Endless Referrals was the first book, and that's a pretty standard how-to book. But I'd always read a lot of parables and always enjoyed them. And I'd always thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take the basic premise of Endless Referrals, which is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust, and turn that into a parable. So I kind of thought, well, so what is the the main essence of a person who is able to very quickly and sustainably develop those know, like, and trust relationships? And it's the fact that they tend to be very much givers. They're always looking for ways to give value to others, to make life better for others, to discover what people are looking to accomplish and help them get it.
Right.
So titling the book The Go Giver was a pretty easy thing to do, but the best thing I really did for the book was to ask John David Mann, was an editor of mine for a magazine I used to write for, but he had a great reputation within his niche of being a brilliant writer, which I knew he was. And so I asked him if he would be the lead writer and storyteller. It's one thing to write a how-to book. A
Yeah.
parable's kind of a different animal, and he just did a wonderful job with it. So it was a great collaboration. So, that's really how that came about.
That's very cool. And be able to leverage the both of you with your knowledge to be able to bring that story together. Like for
Exactly.
anybody who hasn't read the Go Giver or any of the Go Giver books, like it's a super easy read and consumable read. And I really like the parable style from it versus this could have been a manual or been more like a textbook, right? Which could have been
Right.
like very dry with a very like almost with a lot of these leadership development type books. It's like, here's the point, and here's the point 20 more times before we get through the 300 pages, right? Where with the story, it's just it. Yeah, you get the repetition from it, but it feels really natural and it's not so in your face. And I think that's an excellent way to go about it, and very, like I say, very consumable, very like you can read and go, wow, I got something from it. And listening to it multiple times it's almost like watching a favorite movie. You always pick up something different from it, right?
Oh, I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. And believe me, that's the John David Mann part. He did a terrific job with that.
Well, do you mind if we kind of let you dive into the five
Sure.
laws around it?
Sure. Yeah, well, the laws themselves are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. Law number one, the law of value, is all about providing such an immensely fantastic experience for the
Right.
buyer that really, we call it giving more in value than what you take in payment, which can be counterintuitive when you first hear it, because it sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy. Give more in value than you take in payment. But it's
Yeah.
simply understanding that there's a big difference between price and value. Price is a dollar figure. Value is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. So in other words,
Right.
what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth or value to another human being that they will willingly pay for it, exchange their money for it, while you make a very healthy profit? And this could be as simple a concept as the accountant you hire to do your taxes, who charges you $5,000, that's her fee or her price, but or she charges you $1,000, excuse me, but she saves you $5,000. She also
Right.
saves you countless hours of time and provides you with the security and the peace of mind of knowing it was done correctly. So she gave you much more in value than she took in payment. She gave you well over $5,000 in value for $1,000 payment. So you feel great about it, but she made a very healthy profit as well, because to
Right.
her, it was worth leasing her time, her energy, her knowledge, her expertise, her wisdom for that $1,000. So both parties come away very profitable.
Right.
So
So what I
that's the
hear,
law of value.
yeah, so what I hear from that, there's that difference between that what the price tag is going to put, and like value could almost be like more around that emotional sense that you're going to get, from that emotional well-being sense that you get from providing, that product or service to somebody.
Yeah, well, it's the value that this other person feels they had. So in
Yeah.
other words, this person who is the customer felt as though they receive much more than the $1,000 they paid, right? They
Yeah.
receive $5,000 just in terms of tax savings, but also the time they saved, the peace of mind, the overall experience. So that's really, that's the difference maker. That's when
Right.
we talk about the law of value. So our job is always to give more in value than what we take in payment while making a very healthy profit.
Right. And understanding there is that balance to it. It's not about just doing it all for free, which we get into the law of
That it has
compensation
nothing.
next,
It
right?
has nothing to do with doing it. The law of value itself has nothing to do with doing it for free.
Yeah.
Now, there's a time and place to do things for free. There's a time and place to do that, but that's not what the law of value is about. It's understanding the difference between price and value,
Right.
in both parties profiting.
Exactly.
Yeah. The law of compensation, law number 2, says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So, where law number 1 says to give more in value than you take in payment, law number 2 tells us that the more people whose lives we touch with the exceptional value we provide, the more money with which we'll be rewarded. So your accountant in the first example did a great job of giving you more in value than she took in payment. So if you're her customer, the chances are you feel great about her, you do business with her again, and you tell others, you'd refer her to others,
On
and
and
her
on.
other
Yeah.
customers, they feel the same way. So our accountant is very quickly amassing what we call an army of personal walking ambassadors.
I love it.
Yeah. Law number 3, the law of influence, says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Again, kind of counterintuitive when you first hear it. But when you think about it, the greatest leaders, top influencers, most profitable, highest money earning salespeople, this is simply how they run their lives and conduct their businesses. They're always looking out for the benefit of others. Now, let me clarify this and qualify it, if I may. When we say place the other person's interests first, we don't mean you should be anyone's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in
Right.
any way. Absolutely not at all. It's simply understanding, as Joe, the protege in the story, learned from several of the mentors. And as you and I discussed a bit earlier, the golden rule of business says that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Well, Gene, there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way of eliciting those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely moving from an I focus or me focus to an other focus, looking
Right.
to, as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, make your win all about the other person's win.
Yeah. It's that that is a really important mind shift for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
To be able to go, okay, if I'm going to win, that means I need to make you this much win on top of everything else, so that your basically balloon helps pull the rest of us
Yeah.
up, versus get out of my way, I'm stomping over everything, and I'm going to be the first one to the top of that ladder, right? It is a different mindset. You're going to get through your journey and actually have friends and relationships that flourish, and be able to reach
Mhm.
out at any time and connect with them, and like friends do business with friends and
Yeah.
people that they
Yeah.
like you say, right? And that's
Yeah.
how you do that, by by putting them first. And it's I suspect you've been asked numerous times about, that's why you focus on you're not about being a doormat or subservient to anybody. It is a servant leadership component to it, but not from a position of lack of power on either side.
Right.
It's a real,
No.
it's a respect-based
I
thing.
it's sort of like this. If someone was to say, well, this all sounds all nicey nice and everything, but how can you be focusing on others and expect to do well? I would ask. Actually, I have asked this question to many audiences, many sales audience. Also, how many of you agree with the following statement? Nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet, right? No one's going to buy from you because you need the money, and nobody's going to buy from you just because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And that's the only
Right.
reason why anyone should buy or should be expected to buy
Yeah.
from you or from me or from anybody. So the salesperson or entrepreneur who can focus on the other person, that's the one who's created that benevolent context for their
Yeah.
success. It's also why John David Mann and I say that, excuse me, money is simply an echo of value.
Well, I love
Right?
that statement.
Yeah, money is an echo of value. It's the thunder, if you will, to
Yeah.
values lightning, which simply means the focus must be on the value. The value comes first. The money you receive is simply a natural result of the
Right.
value you've provided.
Yeah. And the bigger the value, the bigger, you use the bigger the lightning, the bigger the thunder, right? And
Exactly.
I love that
Absolutely.
that echo of it. It's so true. I've seen that in many interesting startups and stuff. I've done a lot of work with startups in the past, and the founders and everything that are focused on helping their customers thrive a
Exactly.
lot longer than those who are just like, where's my bottom line? What's
Exactly.
our bottom line? What's our bottom line?
And it makes sense. There's nothing woo-woo about it. It makes
No,
total sense. If you can't serve others, they're not doing business with you.
no. Well, you can either build a relationship or a transaction. And I've seen every time a relationship wins out in the long game, every single time. You can nail a lot of transactions in a short period of time, but that well gets dry very quick.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Law number 4 is the law of authenticity. And this says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And one of the mentors in the story in this part, Deborah Davenport, she had shared a lesson she learned that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core, right? But when you do, when you, as we like to say, show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. People
Yeah.
feel comfortable with you. They feel safe with you. Why wouldn't they? They know who they're getting, right? And that's when that know, like, love, and trust really takes hold. That's when people really want to be in relationship with you. It's when they want to buy from you and refer you to others.
Right.
And
As
then,
you're saying that, it seems like there's an inherent predictability about it, right?
yeah,
Because then you're not a chameleon, and everyone knows who you're going to be regardless of the situation, and
a
that
great
that
point.
helps them have that safety and secure, like that borderline safety and security. Going, all right, I suspect I can highly predict how Bob's going to react right now or show up in this situation, and which allows them not to be takes them out of fear. I would see
It
that
does.
as being a way to
Great point.
take somebody out of fear.
Great point. Consistency is so key. We are wired as human beings to want consistency in our lives. Okay. And it's very, very difficult to elicit trust when people don't know who is showing up.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
big time, right? Like
yeah.
it's
So no, you make a great point with that. And then law number 5 is the law of receptivity. And this one, excuse me, this one simply says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. And this really, Gene, means nothing more than understanding that yes, you breathe out, but you also have to breathe in.
yeah,
We breathe out carbon dioxide, we breathe in oxygen. We breathe out, which is giving, we breathe in, which is receiving. giving and receiving are two sides of the very same coin. Now, the world around us would have us think differently. We get so many negative messages from the world around us about money, about business, about prosperity, about abundance, terribly negative messages. But the fact is, giving and receiving they work together. They work in tandem, right? You give and you receive, just like breathing out and breathing in. Now, we know that the laws of life say that the giving comes first, right? We sow before we reap.
Yeah.
And so we give value and we look to give. But then as we begin that process, okay, the receiving comes, but we've got to be able to do that. We've got to be able to allow ourselves to receive, which can be so difficult for a lot of people. And that's because of the messages that we get from the world around us. So there's all sorts of unconscious issues about money, often about worthiness and that's why I think it's so important to make a study of prosperity itself.
Right.
And there's some great teachers out there. There are people like Randy Gage, and there are people like Bob Proctor, people like Sharon Lecter and Ellen Rogan and David Nagel, people who really do such a wonderful job at sharing the laws of prosperity. And it always goes back to the unconscious and our relationship with prosperity, our relationship with money. Because again, the world gives us such horrible messages about it. And we get that garbage in all the time. So we need to proactively, get the good stuff in our head about that.
Yeah. Well, I always say I reference the subconscious as like a supercomputer. We're the user on the front of it, getting to interpret what's coming out of it. And sometimes that's a little bit difficult. Then we
Great point.
We realize, oh no, I have to reprogram this thing. And it can happen, and it takes time and takes a little bit of effort to start to consciously put yourself back in charge to see that message and go,
it does.
Okay, if I'm getting all this receptivity coming in, there's got to be a good reason for it, right? Like this doesn't just happen on its own. And learning to accept that and breaking down your own barriers can be difficult. And I've had to go through and learn that lesson as well.
Most of us have.
And it's really interesting when you start to see that in other people. You're like, oh yeah, like you're being given great compliments and you're batting them away left, right, and
I
center.
was just going to say that's so important. Just someone saying something nice or kind, a compliment, are you going, oh no, no, no? Or are you allowing yourself to say, thank you so much, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And that's practice. And we have to practice our receptivity muscles and build them up, build on our small successes.
Do you see it not, if we've identified out of the 5 laws, out of them, which ones have you seen in practice? Do people need the most kind of like support around? Is it the receptivity?
Yeah. Yeah. That's absolutely. We've had people who've read that chapter and said it was the first time in their life they felt it was good and noble to receive.
Right.
And when we take that as a compliment, but what a shame that's the message of the world is so negative about, about money.
Yeah.
It's really, it's too bad, but it is what it is. And all we can do is our best to work through that.
Yeah. Oh, 100% agree. And the fact that it is workable, and it's typically, surprisingly, how many of those stories are like rooted in our childhood without even realizing where that comes down to, right? So
it's that entire belief system we grow up with that. And at first it's a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, then news media and television and movies, but by the time we're a little more than toddlers, our basic set of beliefs have already been handed to us and etched in stone.
Yeah.
And so many people we grow up with operating out of an unconscious operating system, if you will.
Yeah.
Thinking that we're operating out of free will when really we're living within a matrix that we can, that our decisions are within a very, narrow, right? And we see this all the time. We see it in politics and we see it in, business, and we see it everywhere. But so awareness and consciousness is the first part of understanding.
It's almost like the captain needs to come back to the helm of the ship and not just
Right.
let it go on autopilot, because
Exactly.
it'll take
Exactly.
you on a wild tour.
Mm.
For yourself, well, hearing all that, like somebody who's like written it and really been able to decipher it down to a point that's really ingestible for somebody else, like when did you have that aha moment on receptivity being like the final closing loop for yourself?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it came over time, but it was about 25 or 30 years, no, about 25 years ago that I kind of really started making some changes in my life, some real character development that I kind of knew I needed to work on some traits that were not, characteristics, character traits that were not serving me and serving those around me. And so there were a number of them. And one of them was in terms of receptivity. Uh, and money management and being able to work out of consciousness as opposed to the old tapes, the old
Yeah.
things. So yeah. I mean, I think that's where it was with me, and I think we all have our different times when it kind of hits us, and we need to make those changes.
And they'll still, like, no matter the amount of work, they'll still show up from
Oh,
once
of
in a while. Those
course,
tapes will
absolutely,
fire back up. And
absolutely. It's a constant work in progress.
oh, I love that. I say that around the house all the time. I'm just like, I'm just a work in progress. And sometimes my wife laughs, sometimes she doesn't, but it allows me to, I'm a big believer in like the 1% better than the day before, right?
Mhm.
And being able to find those things out of these 5 laws, if, for everybody who's listening and who hopefully will go and read the book, figuring out which one of the laws are they going to work on that 1% every week, right? It'd be
Sure.
incredible what a difference this becomes. It almost becomes a template for running your business, working with your
Oh, sure.
teams, and definitely working with your clients.
Oh, yeah.
So I know that we're scooching up closer to our time. Like I said, our time always flies by. We're at 27
Well,
minutes
you're
now,
you're a
Bob.
great interviewer. You make it easy and you make it
Oh,
fun.
so out of the series, so you've got I'd love to hear a little bit about your latest book in the series, The Go-Giver Influencer, and how that adds on to the parables that are growing around the Go-Giver.
Yeah, well, the Go-Giver Influencer is the fourth book in the series. It's the third parable, and this one's more about people skills. And I'm a big believer that people skills are the big differentiator. That you can have talent and you can have drive and hard work and skill sets, and that's going to take you a good way, and you can have
Yeah,
some real legitimate success with just that. But to get to that next level, that level of what we call stratospheric success, people skills are really the difference maker. The ability to get the results you want when dealing with others in such a way that not only does everyone come out ahead, but that the other person feels genuinely good about themselves, about the situation, and about you.
right.
And to be able to do that, so it's a skill set. It's fortunately very easy to learn, but like anything else, you learn and you grow and you apply it. And we kind of felt the time was right to bring that into the world.
Into the mix.
Hmm.
That's awesome. I'm
Mix, yeah.
looking forward to learning
Thank
a little bit more about it. But I love that you have that differentiation between like hard work can get you success, but if you want
you.
stratospheric,
Sure. Hmm.
I've heard that term used by a few people now, is like that's what's that difference is working with those people and just really giving them that definition.
Exactly.
If you want that stratospheric success, is making sure the person on the receiving end feels great about themselves
Exactly.
through that whole process, right? So
Yes.
that's a really great way to laser focus how you show up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I did promise to keep this to 30 minutes, so we're on the cusp of that.
Well,
So
you're a pro.
everybody that's on the show, I always ask, what's that one piece of advice if you could go back 10 years? What would you take back and share with Bob 10 years ago?
Well, I think it really is in a sense, it's more like maybe 30, 35 years ago.
All right, let's
Because
go back
10 years
further.
ago, it's not that I had it all together 10 years ago, but I was pretty close to where I am now. You know what I'm saying? I'm always growing, hopefully.
Yeah,
But 10 years ago, it might have been more in terms of, invest in this stock because it's going up, so I don't think that's really what you're asking.
No.
And so, so many years ago, I'd have told young Bob Burg just to shut up and listen, because you think you know a lot, but you really don't. And most of the things you're absolutely certain you do know just aren't so. So you need to listen a lot more than talk. And that would be the advice.
Right. So you've got 2 years, do double the listening than the talking, and take it all in. I'm assuming as well that part of it, really hearing it,
Yeah.
is being able to hear it, and then what are the pieces you need to integrate. So that's a great piece of advice for people to walk away with, who are maybe in their younger parts of their career. I think
Sure.
that can be applied at any point.
It can, absolutely. And of course, we always want to keep learning and growing. It
Yeah.
was just that was really when I was a lot younger. That held me back because I really thought I knew so much more than what I knew.
Only just scratching the tip of the iceberg, probably. Well, Bob, thank you so much for being on episode 24. I really appreciate it, and I have enjoyed your books, and I look forward to hopefully having further conversations with you down the
I
road.
hope so. I hope so too. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, everybody. This has been another episode of Peeled Back's LiveCast Conversations with Bob Burg. All right, have a great week, and we will see you next Wednesday when I interview Sue Ross. Talk to you then.